Okay, let's get started. Did we receive the minutes, by the way?
I believe so. Let me double check.
I checked on the website. I couldn't find them unless I would
They're
look.
not put on the website till after they're approved.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we'll have to defer that anyway.
I'll
Um,
let you know if any more members hop on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is Pam on?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Pam.
Hello.
I guess the first, thank you, Pam, for sending these statistics. And I noticed from 2018 to 2021, the amount paid on day training declined from 52 million to 12. I'm thinking that that will have increased by now. But it did bring up a question in my mind. There are still, as far as I know, a number of ADTs that are still not open. They're shuttered, correct? As far as you know, Pam?
I honestly am not sure. I know that there were some that have decided to do that. I don't have any counts on that though.
Right, but there's some as far as we know. There are some.
There were a lot of residential providers that prior to this last Appendix K update that were choosing not to send their individuals to ADT because that allowed them to bill a higher rate. So
right, and now presumably that issue is resolved with the increase in the rates that presumably we'll see at some point, right?
they're actually already able to bill that. So it was already in Appendix K. Yes, when we did the most recent update of Appendix K and allowed those a lot of the direct service, some of the other direct service like personal care and those type services to bill up to 50% of their rate, the condition was removed off of residential that required them to not be going to ADT, that allowed them to also bill the 50% increase. And that's been in place since the beginning, since like March. I think it was
right. I remember now. Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. But my question is, at some point, and maybe we're at that point where COVID is stabilized. I mean, it still may be a problem, but it may never get better than it is now, right? At some point, it's going to be what it is. Now, these ADTs that are closed, they have participants signed up to, attend those ADTs in their plan of care. Will at some point, if these closed ADTs never open up, can they continue to say they're providing ADT services at some point? Shouldn't they be written out of the plans of care?
If it is the case manager and the rest of the team's responsibility that if an individual is not utilizing that service, they need to evaluate what would be best for that individual. It shouldn't remain on the plan of care if there's no plan for them to utilize it.
I'm not sure if that is the case, but wouldn't.
Well, and even if there's a plan for them to go back, but there's not a date of when that anticipated time is, that shouldn't be left on the plan of care just to be there. And honestly, we had a lot of interactions with participants and their families where they felt like prior to COVID they were forced to go to ADT so that they would be out of the home during the day, because it allowed the residential provider to not have as much staffing. And so there have been several participants that have been happy that they have not been forced to go to ADT. It was not what they wanted.
Well, I'm not saying being forced, but at some point, doesn't your department step in and tell case managers, you can no longer write this ADT into the plan of care since they're not open?
If they are officially closed, and it shouldn't even about, well, I mean, whether they're open or not plays a part. They shouldn't be, if there's a closed provider, they shouldn't be even be allowed to choose them because they're no longer an enrolled provider.
Well,
but case managers should not be, and I would, hope that the team that meets with the individual would advocate for that person and would not let their plan of care have services on it that they're not interested in using or that they are not using right now. That is not the intent of case management and a person-centered plan.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I'm just saying they shouldn't write into a plan of care a service that isn't available. Right.
They should not be.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
If the provider is not enrolled any longer,
yeah,
then the system would not let them. They wouldn't even show up to be on there. Now, if the provider is maintaining their enrollment, there's not, we know when we do the recertifications and when we, look at them for when we're doing any quality audits, we'll pick up on it then, but we don't necessarily know, the ADTs have not, unless they were disenrolling, have not notified us. And this would be with any service.
Yeah.
The only one we're going to know about particularly is if they have people coming and they close, because then they have to give us transition plans and we have to see, that the individuals are given choice about where to go. But, when they sign that's part of why the team sign-in sheet is so important. Those conversations should be happening at the team meetings. If case managers are not adequately or are not being given accurate information, or if someone is not advocating for that participant, that is very unfortunate that all of the providers that make up that plan of care, that no one is advocating for what the participant wants.
Well, I would like to just, I'm not sure if that's happening, Pam. I don't know. But you're saying that at the point of certification, if they are not providing that service that's on their list of services they provide, it should be removed, right?
It should be, yes, because there are other things that obviously that individual should have had needs or even wishes to go to ADT, and if those are not being met, it should be removed and either replaced with a different ADT provider or replaced completely with a different service, or a different or if there's a way with natural supports that are meeting that need. The need shouldn't be going unmet just because the previous provider they were receiving that service from is not choosing to provide those services right now. That should no longer be the case.
Right. Well, can the department send out a reminder on that or let people know that? I'm just afraid that this is still the case, that there are closed ADTs and there are people whose plan of care provides for attending that ADT, and we're all caught in this limbo.
I can check with BDID and see if they know specifically of any that are closed, and try to get that information. I mean, without having kind of some direction to go in, it's really like I'm going on, like searching for needles in a haystack, looking to see who is providing services. So, but I can do some investigation into that. Let me talk with BDID and see if they have any, since they have their QAs in the field, a lot of times they have a better idea of what's going on within SCL versus the other waivers that don't have that staff that are out there. So let me check with them and see if they have any stats on that.
You're referring to DDID, right?
Yes, BDID.
Is there anybody on this call from DDID?
Was looking really quick. I do not see. Quick glance through the names. I don't see anybody on.
So they don't routinely send a representative to attend these meetings?
They do at times, but I will tell you, without having something specifically on the agenda
Right.
that we would need them for, then, I don't routinely reach out to them just to make sure they're going to have somebody attending. So,
Well, you might think that they would just want to attend just to see what we're talking about. Anyway, that's not your problem, but okay. I appreciate that, Pam. And hopefully, basically, we want to know if an ADT is closed, are they still representing that they're offering ADT services, because they shouldn't be if they're closed. Right?
do you all know of any that are
I do.
where that is the scenario? If you want to send those to me, I can
Yeah.
start with those.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll do that. Thanks, Pam.
Hey, Pam, this is Amy. Can I jump in here on this
Yeah.
conversation just a second? There are many ADT providers who have chosen not to reopen, but will reopen at a later point. But to my knowledge, most participants who attended those day training programs, who, as you know, who do want to attend day programming, obviously some do not want to attend day programming, the teams have worked to either find a new day programming provider or have worked to find other services, or those day programming providers who are closed physically are providing virtual options to participants who choose to engage in those services.
Thank you, Amy. That is what I would hope would be happening.
Okay. Okay.
And
well,
I do know some of them have gotten very creative in it, actually it kind of changing the model of ADT in some cases, because they found some of these alternative methods, that they've been able to do different things, and that it's really worked well, and that the participants have really enjoyed it. So there has been some good that came out of the not necessarily being in a building where you had to think about, you had to think of things outside of the box and different activities and different ways that you could still meet individuals' needs. So.
okay. Well, thank you for looking into it, and I'll send you I'll look into it also, and share some organizations that maybe you could look at. In our data request, we had some other items that we wanted to get some information from. Are you still working on those, Pam?
I actually was getting ready I'm doing final quality on critical incidents for individuals that have exceptional supports. And so what I have is, I can tell you, in about the 18 months of time that critical incidents were in MWMA, when we looked at this report, because it didn't go in until late 2020. I believe. I'm going to get my years wrong, but there's not as much data in MWMA, just because the requirement to use MWMA, which makes the reporting easier. So we're looking at a smaller time frame. But there were 264 unique individuals that had at least one incident report reported, and they had an exceptional support. And there were 2,963 unique incidences. I will tell you, there are two individuals that had over 100 incidents apiece. Basically, the bigger buckets, so there were 120 that are kind of bucketed in a green category, which is, they had less than one incident a month. Most times they even had like less than they had one, maybe for the whole reporting period, or two or three. And so those were the biggest buckets. We do still have, though, there's about 62 individuals that had maybe 3 or more incident reports a month, going all the way up to then the 9 individuals that had close to 5 or more a month including our 2 individuals that had over 100 incident reports themselves. But I'm finishing the quality on like the buckets, because I'm also giving you the like so far what, well, I have behaviors up right now. There were 9 of the 2,963 unique incidents. 924 of those were for behaviors, and then it'll give you the breakdown of so like, for example, 164 of those were verbal aggression, all the way down to you had 1 for self-neglect, property damage. You had a physical aggression, property damage. There's several that there was just 1 incident of that subcategory, but you will see all of that when I send that to you.
Thank you. Well, and again, we're asking information on discontinuation notices. You and I have spoken about that quite a bit.
Well, it is not right now. It is not a requirement that is reported in the system. So what we have is not complete data. I don't know how reliable it is. And it's also mixed with discontinuation notices because an individual, or because that provider is closing, which isn't really a discontinuation notice for a particular individual. That is, they are required to do that, tell us when like the provider themselves is discontinuing services, because we follow that to make sure everyone is given freedom of choice. There's also several where the discontinuation notice has been issued, but services have continued, and there's been no more incident reports and no more reports of problems. So it's not clear as to whether an issue resolved itself and the discontinuation notice is no longer applicable. Elizabeth has been working with me to try to refine that data in what we have, but I don't know that it's going to give a completely accurate picture about what you're trying to gather.
Right, but as you recall, at one time, well, a couple of years ago anyway, before COVID, it was considered to be like a major problem that providers were issuing discontinuation notices and then compelled to continue to provide services to that individual. I don't know that situation has gone away, but you understand what I'm saying. We actually formed a task force, as you recall, to talk about that issue.
Yes, there just had never been, there was not, there's still, even then, there wasn't the data, not saying that it wasn't a issue and that it couldn't still be an issue, but we don't have the data in a reportable manner that I can easily get that and report that for you.
I understand that, but if I understand you correctly, you're going to try.
We've been trying. So we have been trying to do that. We are looking at building out MWMA to track that. It just is it is a change that is down the road. It's not something that is going to happen. That is going to happen quickly. It's on the roadmap, but it's not in any of the most current releases that we're working towards.
Are you saying this is like months away, in your opinion?
Yes, for it to be an MWMA, yes.
Yeah, and that would be the best way to discern this information, would be through WMA?
There has to be, and there's going to have to be a requirement for providers to report this. Currently today, there's nothing in regulation that requires providers to report it. If they don't report it, there's not anything, there's nothing in the regulation to follow up on them not reporting it. So it is something that will also take provider education. And then at that point, and even with it being an MWMA, it still is something that you're dependent on the provider to submit timely and accurate information.
Amy, I recall at one time, CAP did do a survey of members on this issue. And you'll recall at one time, this was a very concerning issue among the members.
Sure. Yeah, Rick. And again, for the court reporter, I'm so sorry. My name is Amy Stade. I'm with the Kentucky Association of Private Providers. We did, that data is now several years old and wouldn't necessarily be statistically valid, but this is, if Medicaid would like, we can try to generate some data to give to you, Pam, just obviously something that you all can look at as an FYI. But also I wondered, Rick, if maybe, Pam, you discussed those two individuals with over 100 incidents. And I think that Rick would agree that those individuals like that are the individuals we're talking about regarding this kind of unmet need in the waiver of, you know, providers who can't really rise to the level of services that they need. And maybe that's demonstrated by, you know, the number of incidents that are happening. And I wondered, and I don't even know if this is possible because I don't know what Medicaid's capabilities are. I wondered if Rick, the TAC, would want to try to dig a little deeper into the data on those, you know, two individuals and individuals like them to see if we can discern really what's going on and try to find solutions that help everyone.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. It must be a nightmare. What do you think, Pam? Is there a
I
way?
cannot really give you a, so we ourselves are doing that. As I, you know, have really started looking at this report, how much I can share with the TAC is limited by that individual's health information. So there can't be, we would have to be very careful about what is shared. Now, certainly generalities of, you know, most of the incidents fell into this category or that category, or what types of exceptional reports or supports they were receiving. That kind of information I could share, but I could not get very specific into those individuals. But this is something that I am setting up a meeting to meet with DDID for them to get this data as well, so that they can look into it further too.
Is it possible to invite the provider to a TAC meeting and without divulging any confidential information about the identity of the individual? Just to get, you know, hear firsthand kind of what their stories are.
It would be up to them if they want to do that. I would not share who they are. I could not share who they are with you all without their permission. And this may be that these incidents, this doesn't mean that these all happen at one particular provider location. Now, you know, agreeing over 100 incident reports is very excessive. Also, that this could also include medical incidents. So if they have had, you know, it's somebody that has a lot of medical complications. I don't have the data yet of every incident report broken out to tell you specifically what type of incident it was. There's a lot of factors that can go into that. So
right. And Pam, in speaking with your colleagues, I'm sure you have meetings from time to time with your colleagues throughout the United States. Do you know if our particular policy, our regulation regarding the necessity of finding another provider before you can really discontinue services, is that a common regulation among the states, or do all states have such a provision?
There is a provision that you can't just, and this is going to sound harsh, but that you can't just dump someone without services. So like you can't just take them to the emergency room. However, there also is the same understanding that it is not, there needs to be something in between there so that the provider who obviously is not serving this person effectively because they can't for whatever reason. But they also have a due diligence to protect their staff and to protect the other individuals they serve. So it really it really is a it's a huge, I mean, it's a big problem. And it's also getting to the bottom of, looking at the different, are we seeing more incidents at a certain provider? Are we seeing more, because incidents a lot of times are symptoms of other things that are going on. So, I mean, it's not just every time about the individual person. For example, there may be, and we've seen this with bad players that have, unfortunately, you identified that it's not, when you take the individual away from that situation, there's a completely different presentation and their behaviors are different. Their whole demeanor is different. It's multifaceted. There's a lot to it. It can't just.
I agree. And I think the tragedy is that the way, let me just say this, I'm part of a national organization and I go there and I describe what's going on in Kentucky and they act like they don't know what I'm talking about. Like there's other states that don't have those kind of provisions.
There's other states too that Kentucky is very heavy into the amount of things that are required as critical incidents.
I'm talking about discontinuation, of services.
So Rick, maybe bring that to a meeting, invite some of those colleagues, or you all, as a TAC, talk about that and provide some, some feedback on what feasibly other states are doing versus this is a problem.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I mean, those are the types of things that this TAC should be doing, is bringing that kind of information. And Amy, we do track, so each individual on individual levels, they are trended. There's reports that are done where things are trended by participants, by provider, and that data is used to identify problems and identify successes, actually. So.
Oh, thanks, Pam. Thank you for clarifying that. I didn't realize that the system had that capability.
With having it in MWMA, we get weekly and monthly reports and as well as the ability that we can generate our own reports. Like if there's if I wanted to go in and look at a particular incident category or a particular provider, I could do that at any time.
Well, I agree with what you've said, Pam, and I think I guess the tragedy of it is that there are individuals who could thrive in another setting, but because of the risk they believe they're going to take, they don't want to give that individual a chance. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I do. So I'm curious as to if other states are not having a similar problem. What are other states doing? So I think that would be of value if you could have someone come and speak to the TAC members or to, provide information. That would be a value to share.
I will work on that. Thank you. And maybe, Amy, are you aware of anybody? Is this an issue with Anchor?
Yeah, I'm happy, Rick, to connect you with some state associations in other states if you want to chat with them about how their states handle this type of situation.
Because I think they do them in different ways. I mean, they're not all like Kentucky. Would you agree, Amy?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. A lot of states use the 30-day notice period, or however many day it is. They obviously, some states vary by how many days the notice period is. But from what I understand, similar to how the ABI waiver in Kentucky is, and I could be mistaken on my notion of how that works, but a lot of states at the end of the period, if the individual has not or the team has not located another provider by the end of the period, the state steps in and locates someone for them.
Interesting. Yeah.
Not necessarily. That doesn't. We actually, if they reach out to us, we help with any waiver in that capacity. But yeah, but it's not necessarily, ABI does not. ABI works just like SCL. It's just there a lot of times is more engagement from the ABI providers asking for help or reaching out and collaborating and saying, okay, this is what I've tried. Do you have any other ideas? Or but that is something that we have I have done I have actually called and talked to providers before, so.
Yeah, it's sometimes, see, just anecdotally from what I hear, that sometimes the most difficult people to serve are being served by people who have the least resources to serve that person. So yeah, we'll look into that. On number 6, is Patty Dempsey online? Okay, well, that was what she suggested. I don't want to assume that I know
I thought
exactly.
she logged in, Rick. Let me look.
Yeah, I see her. She's on.
She's on. She just may be on mute.
Patty, are you there?
I am.
Okay, you suggested this number 6 on the agenda, correct?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, would you like to talk about that, please?
Well, actually, I just wanted to see if we could get an update because we had gotten information on it. Wasn't for sure, actually wasn't up to date on actually what's being done on that, on the measure set guidance, actually what that involves, and are there various groups actually or committees that's actually working on that? So basically we'd had some questions and had gotten some information. So just wanted to get a perspective from the state, if we could, on what's going on with that.
So we've been attending still some information sessions and some, you really call it officially training, but more kind of implementation guidance that includes other states. We have been again reading and researching and understanding what we need to change. As far as the setup of any committees or groups, that has not occurred yet. It's been within the leadership of all of the different departments. So Dale has been involved, BDID's been involved, of course, Medicaid is involved, the leadership and the quality staff reviewing all the materials and establishing a plan of how we want to proceed. But we have not gotten to the point of engaging, forming any of those committees or groups yet.
Okay, and so actually, is there a deadline for that? For this actually to happen?
I feel like there is, but Patty, I cannot off the top of my head give you, I can find that and send it to you. There's just has been, honestly, there's so much going on right now that I don't want to pull a date out and it be wrong. So let me go back and confirm and I can send that.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to number 6, the HB1 rate increase update. We received a letter from you, Pam. I don't know if that indicates that you're concerned about this too, or want to assure us what's going on, but it has been a long time.
It is with the spending plan was modified and was sent to CMS. Let me find the date that it was. But we still do not have final approval from CMS. And Rick, I got CMS had sent the inquiry that you had sent to them. It actually went to the incorrect staff at CMS, but they forwarded that on to us. But there has not been a final approval from CMS. Trying to find the date.
Does that surprise you?
No,
it doesn't.
No. If you think about there are how many state, of all the states have to submit any modifications of the plan as well as quarterly updates to the plans to be reviewed. So it really doesn't surprise me. Now the increase will go back to July 1. We will do adjustments, but for example, the residential providers are already able to bill that additional 50%. It was in Appendix K, and a lot of the direct service providers are able to bill even higher than the 10%. They're able to bill 50% right now based on Appendix K. I will tell you, one of the concerns CMS had, and they asked us questions originally, was what kind of methodology was used to determine the 10% and the 50%, and concern about the inequality in the rates amongst different populations. So we provided, information back to them that this was a legislative action, that it was what was approved in the budget, and that it directed us to use the funds for that were in ARPA to fund this. So that means we have to get their approval, and that's where we are, is still waiting on that final approval from them.
Are you so confident that we will get that approval?
They haven't given me a reason to believe that we will not.
Okay.
But again, I can't really speak for them. So
here's another question, just for my own, so I can figure this out. We're saying we're funding this with the FMAP dollars. Regardless of what happened, when does that FMAP boost end?
So they extended it. It was that they had to be utilized by March of 2024. They extended that date. However, those funds we'll exhaust those before we get to 2024.
Well, we have enough to get through the biennium, correct?
No, we don't.
We
No,
don't?
We do not. No.
Then what happens?
They, in the budget bill, there was language that they would, and I don't have it up in front of me exactly how, that they would provide funds, or that it wasn't a specific
Pam, I know it's specific. The language is the General Assembly intends to
thank you. That was the word I was looking for. They intend to provide that money, but
from the general fund, right?
Yes.
Once these FMAP dollars run out, is that your understanding?
Yes, it's from the general fund, Rick.
Okay.
It's Amy. It's from the general fund.
And that so we wouldn't have to renew it in the next biennium. It would it's on.
Well, you're going to have the rate study is also coming in the middle of it. So, what ultimately that 20% is going to end up being, you will be absorbed in the rate study. So you won't see anybody that gets less than a 20% increase.
Gotcha.
But, now, instead of at the time that the new rates go in, it being, maybe a 40% increase, the rate is going to be, it would be 20% of what was given plus 20% of the rate increase. So that this 20% increase over the biennium, it will be absorbed into the rates.
And basically the 20% is a floor then, right?
Yes. So no one will get less than that, but we weren't anticipating that. The initial indications were no provider was going to get less than that anyways.
Okay. Well, that's great. Thank you.
But what it did do is it took all of those so our original spending plan with all of the activities we had outlined in that, all of those went away. So we can't do any of the activities that were outlined in the original spending plan. Those funds will all be used to this rate increase.
Oh, you mean like like additional slots, things like that?
No, like the work on the waiting list, like the
okay.
All of that was outlined in the original spending plan. The things we were going to try to do.
Workforce things.
Yes.
Is that what you're referring
to? All of the
to?
things to try to strengthen the program.
Right. Okay.
The funding for those went away. Now we are looking at, how can we do things? The rate study, because that is so vital, and we realize that in particular, so outside of SCL, the other waivers had not received an increase in many, many years,
Mhm.
some well over 10 years. And HCB actually had seen a decrease in some of their rates. So we felt very strongly, and the secretary committed to us completing the rate study. So, that work has gone on. We're looking at the other things that we believe are very important that were in that spending plan to see alternative ways that we can fund those and still have some of those things happen.
Well, yeah, while still, I guess, conforming with the HB1, right?
Yes, so there's none of that those dollars are not there to be used. So none of this would be funded using those dollars.
Gotcha. Well, that leads us to our next agenda item, rate study work group. Do you have some specific questions, Amy, on that?
I was just looking for an update. Several of the meetings have been canceled, and Pam, I might be remembering this totally wrong, but I think the original timeline provided to the work group had us seeing a preview of the rates in September or
Yeah.
October.
It did. It
wondering-
did. However, with the rewriting of the spending plan and the work on that and the rate increase, so things have stopped temporarily on the rate study. We also had to, because of our procurement and contract rules, we had to re-procure. So Guidehouse will be continuing. However, there was a period of time that they could not work. So we are having a meeting. We are going to still have the meeting next week, really for me to give just a kind of updated timeline of where we are and what we, where the when we'll be at the point of those previewing those rates.
Well,
Are we still, if you don't mind me asking, are we still on track to kind of do all of this and reopen the regs and get everything implemented, as well as, some of the other things you all have been discussing with the regs in Q1 of next year?
The regs and things would be open Q1, but the time it takes to approve the regs and the waivers, it will likely be Q2 or Q3 before everything makes it through all of the process and gets approved.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we've got a going list of things because as you mentioned, there's several things in the regs that we've wanted to change, and within the waiver applications that we wanted to change. That we are going to do when we open it up. We're going to do all of those at one time, which will include, the rates, which hopefully will be much more timely than if we were to open them multiple times. That's why you've seen with all 6 waivers ended up being on the renewal timeline either at the end of last year or during this year. So that's why a lot of the waivers, as you've seen them posted for public comment, there doesn't look like there really was much change to them. Other than SCO, we added the 50 slots that were given in House Bill 1. And the 50 for Michelle P. The initial 50 is going into that Michelle P renewal. And then once we open it back up with the rates, then we'll put the additional 50 that we were given for the second year in those renewals. So that we were able to go ahead and put in there, but there were things that we need to clean up in the regulations and in the waiver applications themselves that will be done when we're able to change the regulations.
Let me see if I understand this. I mean, originally you hoped September because you were just going to focus on SEL and Michelle P. And now it's taking longer because you're including, among the reasons it's taking longer is because you're including all the waivers.
No, there was never a plan to just do Michelle P and SEL.
Oh,
It
okay.
was all 6 waivers because we want all the participants who are served, regardless of their disability and what waiver they're on, to have equal access to services and the benefits. So the plan was always that all 6 of them would happen at the same time.
But it is taking longer than you originally hoped, right?
It is, yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, let me ask another basic question. Is there a third party involved in this rate study, like Navigant or like before?
Yes, as I mentioned, that was who was working on it before. We have re-procured. They will be, we have the signed agreement with them, and they will be continuing the rate study.
Will there be work groups working with Navigant on this, made up of some providers? Or has that already been established? I don't know.
Study, yeah, so that will continue. That same work group will continue to be part of the rate study, as well as we will continue to post all of the meetings and the minutes and all of that information on the website, like we have been doing.
So if I understand you, it won't be necessary to establish new groups. We'll just use.
No, we'll use, it'll be the same. It'll be the same groups.
Okay.
The same individuals that were participating.
Okay, and I guess they have not been meeting yet, or they'll meet soon, or?
We did not meet. We have not had the last couple of meetings. We have a meeting scheduled for, I believe, Monday, I think is when it is, the 26th. And so we are going to meet. It may be it may not be the full 2 hours, but to go back over kind of to reestablish the timeline and the going forward, and to talk about the cadence of the meetings, and, just really to get everything started again is what Monday, the 26th meeting is going to be about.
Okay, so we're back on track.
Yes, and we'll just establish our new answer questions about the timeline, and kind of establish our new milestones dates on Monday.
And your best guess now is the second or third quarter of 2023 as to when this will be finished.
Our hope is for them to be in place and approved by quarter 3 of 23. So by fall of 23, now we'll begin work on opening the regulations. And I mean, there is a lot of work that goes into getting them submitted to LRC and to CMS for approval. And then they have their time period that they take to review. So, we will begin working on regulation changes and the waiver amendments. We'll already be working on that beginning in the first quarter of 22.
Do you think in the first quarter of 22, like your work will be done and it'll be ready?
23. Yeah, I'm looking at 22. 23. I said 22. So 23. So yeah, I mean, it's hoping by the end of that first quarter that we can be done and it can be passed on to the next levels for approval.
Okay.
For that to take the second quarter.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Pam.
Go ahead.
This is Amy. Just a quick question, and you don't have to know the answer or necessarily answer me now, but I didn't know if you all had intended to use the E-reg process throughout that next year to implement them sooner, or if you're just going to go the traditional route.
I actually cannot answer that because it is above me as to who's making that decision.
Gotcha.
Okay, in terms of the MAC meeting, I will not, which is tomorrow, I believe, right? Is that correct? Or no?
It is Thursday.
Thursday. I will not be able to attend. I don't know, just in my opinion, I'm not sure, since we don't have a quorum and we haven't. Does anyone feel a desire to attend the MAC meeting? I'm not sure that the members of the MAC necessarily care about the issues we've spoken about here. What do you think, Amy?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's up to you, Rick. But before we get off, can we do the wait list numbers?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I skipped that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Can we do number 9?
Yes, that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
So SCL wait list is at 2,849.
What was it?
2,849. There are 0 in the emergency category, 125 in urgent, and 2,000. Oh wait, that's not right. I got the same number for future planning. So the balance of that, let me do that math really quick. I wrote down the same number twice. Let's see. 2,724 future planning. For Michelle.
How are you? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead,
Ray. Do you have a question on that specifically?
Well, are you still working on that protocol for children in terms of eligibility?
That was part of the enhanced FMAP work.
Yeah. Okay.
So no, there has not been continued work on that. It is something that we likely will pick back up. But the work stopped on that when we modified the spending plan.
I gotcha. But you're still hoping to revive that effort.
We're hoping to look at wait list in general, and part of that is looking at children, as well as not just the wait list, but children receiving services in general, and what is that would be more appropriate for there to be a different waiver for children. But that
and to come up with a different protocol in terms of eligibility for children. A pediatric.
Well, I mean, they still have to meet. So, they ultimately, the fundamental requirement is they have to meet institutional level of care. Yes, assessment tools are something, again, we were going to look at through the with the FMAP, the spending plan.
Okay.
So we had to stop our work on that when we modified that for the rates. That's all things that we'll have to pick back up as we can, based on the availability of funds outside of that enhanced FMAP money to be able to do those activities.
Right. Well, as you know, we've been talking about this for years.
Right. And that's why it was very exciting when we had the enhanced FMAP dollars.
Right.
We were going to be able to do, and we had the teams already working on it, and but we had to stop all of that when we were directed to use that money for that 20% increase, despite working on the rate study as well. So
right. So there's actually a cost involved in studying this and coming up.
Yes, you have to be able to engage. We had at that point Guidehouse, who was previously Navigant. They were not just working on the rate study, they were also leading all of our waiver, all of the activities in the enhanced FMAP. And so their level of expertise and what them or any other consultant would be able to bring to the table is what's essential to be able to help us to project manage that and to take those types of projects from start to finish line. There is a lot of, there's staffing time that goes into that, as well as just the expertise. When you have, these consultant groups that we have come in have experience with CMS, they have experience with multiple other states. And so they're able to facilitate those things happening.
I got you.
And augment the staff. So, you have staff that are responsible for day-to-day operations and making sure that everything continues. So you can't just stop the day-to-day operations to work on the special project.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize there was a third party involved, which makes sense.
Yes, they were. It was being paid through those enhanced FMAP funds.
Okay. So is there any chance that you can revive that before the end of this biennium, or do we just,
we are looking at ways that we can, the secretary has given us some leeway in working with the commissioner of things of those things that were in that spending plan that we can continue, that the state is having to come up with the funds to pay for those outside of what we were going to have as with the enhanced FMAP.
Okay. So maybe, yes, likely you can revive that before the end of the biennium. You're hopeful.
Well, and at this point, it's not even, yes, I'm hopeful that we are going to revive some of those things, but it won't be on as large of a scale as it was when we
Right.
had the enhanced FMAP dollars.
But it still
because
may be able to get accomplished.
A few of those can. A few of those things can. So some of the studies, like on the wait list and looking at children and potentially looking at an assessment tool, most likely, yes. Now, the crisis funds that we're going for,
Right.
looking at, supporting when we had somebody that maybe had went out to a crisis hospitalization and needed that interim level of care to help them transition back into residential successfully.
Yeah.
That was a huge cost, and that right now is not, we will not be able to pick that back up.
But the pediatric assessment is, if I understand you.
It's not even just pediatric assessment. It's
Oh.
looking at a validated
everything.
assessment tool overall.
And that's a priority.
That is one of the projects that we would like to restart.
Okay. All right. So our next meeting is.
Hey, wait,
Do you want the Michelle P
wait,
numbers?
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
just
Yeah,
have
go
another
ahead.
question.
Yeah.
Okay, Patty?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so what was the Michelle P numbers?
It is, so total on the wait list is 7,964. Under 20 is 5,520, and greater than 20 is 2,444. So still we're hovering at that 69 to 70% are children.
Okay, 70%. Okay, so I was kind of anxious to hear about that. I hadn't heard the numbers for a while because I just wondered if, like, for right now, and it doesn't look like it really, if there was an increase in people signing up on the waiting list.
No, it really has kind of leveled off. We're not, we do still have some that are added, but we also have been allocating pretty much every 90 days for the last 3 years. We have 411 slots available right now, not counting the 50 because I can't put those in until we get the approval from CMS. But we probably will, as soon as this last round of allocations wraps up, then we'll be doing another round of allocations.
Okay.
So probably at least by the end of the year, we'll allocate probably another 250 slots sometime between now and December.
And okay, between now and December. Okay. Well, just kind of curious, but it doesn't look like there's a big increase or a big jump because we've gotten a lot of phone calls, and I do have to say most of them are pretty much like either one of the parents have lost their jobs, and they had not originally, a lot of children that had not signed up for services previously. So I just wondered if there was a big increase.
No, it has stayed stable. And we also encouraged, in particular for children, that, if you're under the age of 21, I mean, they're eligible for state plan services. They're eligible for EPSDT special services. So if there's a benefit that, if it's something that wouldn't normally be covered, but it's medically necessary for that child, they're eligible to receive approvals using that EPSDT special services benefit. So there are other opportunities for them to get services outside of the waiver.
Okay, still through the Department for Medicaid though, right?
Yes, it's still through Medicaid, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I apologize for my inadvertent skipping over of number 9, but I think we've covered that now.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have a comment before we talk about our next meeting and adjourn? Okay.
Is not meeting, is that a Zoom meeting?
It is.
Is that pretty much how all the tax, you probably don't know, Pam, but is that, I think has the MAC decided to meet Zoom?
Aaron, do you know?
So far, Rick, we've been kind of leaving that up per TAC. 99% of the TACs have decided that with winter coming and they don't want to travel, that they would like to stay via Zoom. I believe the MAC said that they would like to maybe sometime in the spring do an in-person. So we've kind of been leaving that up to the TACs. Now, I will tell you some of the barriers we've run into. Our public health area had some pipes burst. So they're big, nice conference rooms that we could utilize. have not been able to be used, and LRC is no longer allowing people to use their video equipment, which we have to have with it being, the open meetings. So that's been some of the barriers that we've run into. So for the most part, a lot of the TACs have decided that they prefer virtual. They feel like they get better attendance. They don't have to travel.
Yeah.
One said they could be, dressed up top and then in their PJ bottoms. And so we've kind of just been leaving that up to you guys to talk about. So if you want to maybe put it on your agenda, either next meeting or, and I am currently working on the 2023 calendar. I got most of those emails constructed yesterday. And I just haven't had a chance to hit send on all those. So I should have those dates out to you within the next week or two, hopefully. I just want to go back over my calendar and make sure I didn't miss a month, miss a TAC. There's quite a few, you guys. So I just want to make sure I don't have anything overlapping. So it's kind of just been left up to you guys, but most everyone prefers the virtual so far.
Okay, well, November will be virtual. Another question, in terms of the regulations on the membership of a TAC, is there provisions that if you miss so many meetings, you're no longer on the TAC?
So there has been, we've ran into this issue with one other TAC. There are, if you have members that that are not showing and that aren't active, that their term has not expired, the guidance I have been giving is if you can basically write a blanket letter, we're looking to fill this spot, and then I can start reaching out to the associations with that. I know that you guys have a few vacant slots as well that I've also been trying to reach out and get filled. I have let some of the other TACs know, the ones that have been having this issue, like if you know someone that is in that association and you want to reach out and say, hey, we've got a vacant spot. Would you be interested in serving? They can reach out to me and we can get that ball rolling. Cause I know a lot of the other TACs, they all know a lot of people in the other associations. And so they kind of reach out and say, hey, would you have any interest in doing that? And so that's something that you and I can work on together.
Yes. And again, what about bumping off people who don't attend?
Yeah. So I believe it's 3 consecutive meetings, then we can reach out to the association and, say, hey, we have an inactive member. And that's where the blanket letter would come from the chair, just to say, hey, we have an inconsistent inactive member, whether they're no longer interested in serving or maybe they've moved out of town. And so that's kind of a request to fill that. And then the vacant spots I work on. But when it comes to the inactive, it's just kind of a very simple blanket letter. We've got a inactive member and we would like to fill the spot, so that I can reach out to them with something from the chair that states, so it's not just me saying, hey, you've got people not showing up.
Yeah.
But then in the vacant slots, that's something that I work on with the association.
But when you say a vacant letter, that would be a vacant letter that goes only to the people who haven't been attending.
Yes, a blanket letter, not a vacant letter. I'm sorry. My sinuses are a little stuffy today. So yeah, just something very generic and simple that just says, this is our chair. We've,
Okay.
I'm the chair of this TAC and we've had inactive members, and you can just leave a slot and I can kind of fill in the name. So that way you're not constructing a letter for everyone who's inactive.
Can you help me construct a list of members who haven't attended for 3 consecutive meetings?
Yes, I can go back and pull some of the minutes and look and see who
Okay.
hasn't been there.
Okay, good. And all right, sounds like we have some work to do then, right, Erin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And our next meeting will be November, correct?
Yes.
That will be
Give me just a second. I'll pull up my calendar here.
the 15th.
Yes, sir.
And did you say you'll be asking us to establish dates for 2023 sometime soon?
Sorry about that. I muted myself. I have already worked on that calendar. I just want to go back and review it.
So
with
you've picked out some
TACs
dates. You've picked out some dates for our TAC to meet then.
Yes, sir. And what I did is I based it off of the same
Okay.
of the date and times you did
Okay.
this year to stay consistent.
All right, that sounds great. If there's no further business, we are adjourned.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.